multiplying mixed numbers. Before we want to begin multiplication of mixed numbers, we should review what multiplication means. And again, the idea of groups, like 3 times 4 is 3 groups of 4. So that idea of groups is going to be very important again. At this point, students should know how to multiply 3/4 times 1/5. In other words, know how to multiply fractions, multiply numerator and multiply denominator. Okay, so understanding the idea of groups and what the concept means and how to multiply fractions is expected before students would do this lesson. If the students have forgotten about groups, for example, they haven't done anything with groups, then you may have to remind them of it. Like, for example, you might just have to have them work on a problem like 1/2 times 3/4 and say, okay, well, 3/4 is in the group. What is 1/2 of that group? And so again, the students would have to work with manipulatives there. That's what's in the group is 3/4. And if I want to break that into 2 equal groups, well, or between me and another person, I'd get this, they'd get that, and we'd have to split that evenly. Okay, so these 2/8 are the same as 1/4. And so doing that, I see that I have 1/4 and 1/8, or 3/8. I'd have 3/8 and they'd have 3/8. So this would equal 3/8. Okay, that understanding is essential. If the students have not done this for 6 months or a year, or never done this, then what I'm about to show you is not going to work. So you're going to have the students go through exercises like this first. Okay, so looking at a problem like multiplying mixed numbers, we would have the students show me what this would be. And that'd be one group of 3/4. So in this case, there's one group of 3/4, and you might even talk about this in terms of candy or something like that. Imagine there's a package, and in the package you go to a vending machine, and there's a package, and they're selling these 3/4 cookies. That's the big catch for. That's what they're known for, 3/4 cookies. And so you go to the vending machine, you put in your money, and out comes this package, and that's what it's got there, 3/4. And so that's what's in the group, 3/4. And you say, okay, so if you eat one package, or if you eat one group, how much do you eat? You eat 3/4 of it. Okay. So 1 times 3/4 is 3/4. If I had 2 of those, 2 packages, if I went to the vending machine, got 2 packages, I would have 2 sets of those, or 3/4 and 3/4, which would be 6/4. Okay? In this case, I'm just going to stick with 1 package. But that kind of concept is important for students to really understand prior to any of this way of teaching this multiplication of mixed numbers. All right, so let's say in this case, that's what I have here is represented there. And let's say, okay, I'm going to go to the vending machine and get another package of 3/4, but I'm only going to eat half of it. In other words, I'm going to share this with somebody, and that's kind of what we just did before with these here. Okay, so instead of me having the whole group or the whole package, I'm having half of the group or half of the package. And in the package is 3/4 of a cookie. So there's the package, out it comes, and me and a friend decide we're going to share it. I get this, he gets this, and then we break this like so. And I can see, okay, how much of the cookie do I get? How much of the cookie does my friend get? Okay, so 1/2 of this is 3/8. Okay, and the students came into the class today knowing how to do those abstractly. Okay, so looking at this problem here, how much of these 3/4 cookies that come out of the vending machine, how much have I eaten? I've eaten 1.5 packages, and in each package was 3/4. How would I write that? 1.5. There's the 1, there's the half, but all in one, I could write it 1.5 because I had 1.5 packages of 3/4. And so that'd be my question to the students. How do I write it? And of course, there's the answer right there. So saying, okay, I ate 1 package, I ate half a package. If I ate 1.5 packages, how would I write that? And again, they have this right there on the board. The number of groups that they've eaten, in this case, would be 1.5. And so they should be able to generate something pretty close to that. Okay, actually, they should be able to generate exactly that. And how much would I have eaten then if I ate 1.5 packages? Well, 3/4 and 3/8. And so they could say, okay, well, you'd have, again, they might use a picture, they might use manipulatives. That's what they've eaten. They've eaten 3/4 and 3/8. So altogether, how much have I eaten? Well, okay, I would say, all right, I can see there that I've eaten either 1 1/8, I could look at it that way, 1 1/8, or in terms of eighths, and this is what I'm going to want to emphasize, are the eighths, are writing it in terms of an improper fraction. So they could say 1 1/8 or 9/8, okay? Because if I turned all these into eighths here, that'd be 8/8, and 1/8 is 9/8, okay? And that's going to be the one I'm really focusing on. I'm not going to focus so much on this one, because when I start to look for patterns, this one isn't going to be as helpful as this one, okay? So for the first time, I've multiplied using a mixed number. My students have multiplied using a mixed number. We found it conceptually, or I'm sorry, concretely, or if they made a drawing, they found it that way too. So there's one of my equations I'm going to put on the board. Okay, and which we'll use to find a pattern later. So I could say, what if I had, again, these cookies, and someone comes out with a new cookie, and in it, it's the 1/3 cookie. So you get a package, and out comes 1/3 a cookie. And let's say I buy two of them, 2 packages, or I have 2 groups of 1/3. How do I write that? 2 groups of 1/3, and I can see I'm going to have 2/3 of a cookie. Okay. So let's say I go back and I order. I go back to the vending machine and I say, okay, I'm going to put in my money to get another one of these, except instead of eating the whole thing, me and 3 friends, or 4 of us, are going to share that. Okay? So I'm going to have 1/4 of that. So the group I'm looking at is 1/4 of the group, not the whole group, not 2 groups, but only 1/4 of the group. So I have 1/4 of the group, and in the group is 1/3. How much of this am I going to eat? Well, there's me and 3 friends. I've got to break it 4 ways, and if I use the manipulatives, I can see, okay, I get this, and she gets this, and he gets this. We each get 1/12. Okay, so again, and by the way, they should know this. Again, coming into this class, this isn't a mixed number here. This isn't a mixed number here. They should know how to do these. Okay, well now what happens if you look at this here? I ate 2 packages of 1/3, and I ate 1/4 of another package. So altogether, I ate 2 1/4 packages, 2 whole packages and 1/4 package, and in each of the packages 1/3. How would I write that mathematically? Okay, so again, it's the idea is, well, I had 2 1/4. Okay, and then how much did I actually eat if I ate 2 1/4 packages? Well, in the 2 packages, I ate 2/3, and in the 4th package, I ate 1/12. So there's how much I ate. Okay, so in this case, boy, I'm going to have to make those into, I'm adding 1/12 and 2/3, and of course here I am in 5th or 6th grade, and I know I can add those together, or I could just use the manipulatives here. If I add them together, I need a common denominator. You got to just use the manipulatives. Either way is fine. I can say I got 4, 8, 9. Looks like 9/12. 4, 8, and 9. Okay, and that I'm going to put on the board, collecting my data so the students can analyze. So there's a second one I have. And remember on this one up here, I'm probably not going to, I'm going to write it this way and tell the students, yeah, you can write it both ways, but that's the one I'm going to want to emphasize. Okay? So maybe we do another one where we do problems such as 1 times 1/2. And then we do, in other words, I order a package of this, and then I split it between me and a friend. I get a fourth. So if I have 1 package and a half a package, or 1 1/2 packages, 1/2's in the package, I will have eaten 1/2 and a fourth, or 3/4. Here's the third problem. Okay, so now I've collected a lot of data here, and I'm going to want the students to begin to analyze it. Could they see a way to go from here to here, or from here to here, or from here to here? They probably aren't, because if you look at that, I mean, there's nothing that really stands out. It looks like 2 times 2 is 4, and that works. 4 times 3 is 12. Some things are working here. 2 times 4 is 8. So the denominators look like I'm getting somewhere, but how do I get that 9? And how did I get this 3? And how do I get this 9? Okay, they might find something. There are some ways to do this. Some students might come up with the idea of the distributive property, where in this case 2 1/3 would give me 2/3, which is up here, 2 1/3, and 1/4 of 1/3 would give me 1/12. So I could actually multiply 2 times 1/3, get this number, take 1/4 times 1/3 and get this number, and then add them together. Okay, that's very nice. I wouldn't emphasize that because we're looking for actually the algorithm that we were taught. All right, so right now that might be the best they're going to do. Say, okay, let me give you a hint. Let's try something else. Okay, what if we made all these mixed numbers into improper fractions? So let's write all the problems that we have now as improper fractions. So in this case, this would be 3/2 times 3/4 equals 9/8, and 9/4 times 1/3 equals 9/12, and 3/2 times 1/2 equals 3/4. Does that help them? And of course you can see the pattern. This isn't even a new pattern to them. They've been doing this coming into this class. Remember I said they already know how to multiply fractions coming in? They're going to say, oh, it's just what we did before. I see. And then of course we would test it. Okay, so I'd give them another problem abstractly. Let them, and I'd make it in terms of a mixed number. Okay, so I'd give them a mixed number like 2 1/3 times 1/4 or something like that. And then I'd say, okay, go ahead and try your pattern. So they would go ahead and take that 2 1/3 or whatever, the mixed number, and make it into an improper fraction and find out that this thing is working. Okay, again, they could check it with the manipulatives or with the drawing. All right, so that's very nice because now they can multiply a mixed number times a fraction the way they had done before. They just one more step. They just have to make the mixed number into an improper fraction. They came up with it. They created this method of solution. Now, admittedly, I did say, what if we would make the mixed number into an improper fraction? So it wasn't a great creation on their end, but can you see that they are reasoning all the way through? They are understanding. They are trying things. That even here, when I challenged them to find a pattern here, they were thinking mathematically. Okay, and that's what we want them to do: analyzing and evaluating. Okay, so now they know how to multiply a mixed number times a fraction. What about a mixed number times a mixed number? And again, the process is pretty much the same. So let's look at something like 2 times 1 and 1/2. What would that mean? That'd mean 2 groups, and in each group is 1 1/2. So let's just make our group here. Our group would be 1 whole and 1/2. Okay? So that's one group. There's a second group. And I can see that 2 groups of 1 1/2 would be 1, 2, and then 3. I could take this 1/2, bring it up here. So there's my answer. I could say, all right, what about 1/2 of 1 1/2? Okay, so there's our, let's redraw it over here. There's our 1, and there's our 1/2. Okay, so if I want 1/2 of this, I mean, I could break it down the middle and say, okay, half of this, either the top half or the bottom half, would be, there's a 1/2 and there's a 1/4. I can say it's going to be 3/4. A 1/2 and a 1/4 is 3/4. Okay? So here is 2 groups of 1 1/2, and here's a 1/2 a group of 1 1/2. What if I had 2 1/2 groups of 1 1/2? In other words, 2 groups and 1/2 a group. Okay, well I can just see it right there. Okay, so it's just adding all these things up, and now I would say I'd have 1 whole, I'd have 2 wholes, I'd have 3 wholes. When I put those together, 3 wholes, a 1/2 and a 1/4. So I have 3 and 3/4, which is just adding 3 to 3/4, 3 and 3/4. Okay? And so I found this answer using a semi-concrete method of solution, but could I have found this just looking at the problem here and the answer here? All right, and I'm not going to be able to do it again because it looks like 2 times 1 is 2, and 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4, and some things are partly working. But again, I could suggest to the students, I could say, what if you wrote these as improper fractions? Because we had just done that. When we were doing a problem like this, we wrote the mixed numbers in improper fractions. So we try that here. And we'll write the answer that way too. Does that help us? And of course, they say, oh my goodness, it looks like just what, again, what we've been doing since maybe 3rd grade or 4th grade, multiplying numerator, multiplying denominator will get us this. So my question then would be, okay, so if I'm given a problem with an improper fraction and multiplication, what should I do? I'm sorry, with a mixed number and multiplication, what should I do? And the idea is, okay, we just turn them into improper fractions first, and then multiply them, and then we have to simplify it. So when dealing with, again, teaching mixed number multiplication, what we're doing is we're looking at the concept. We are understanding what multiplication means, groups, and we're using it whether it's with the manipulatives or the pictures. The students already know how to multiply a fraction times a fraction, so we're going to incorporate that too. But again, here we give students tasks where they begin in the concrete or semi-concrete, and they find answers that way. And then what they do is we start collecting our data on the board, several examples, like even with here, we only did one example here of a mixed number times a mixed number. We could have done 3 of these first and then put them on the board and let the students look for a pattern. And in this case, you might say, well, how about if I wrote this in terms of improper fraction? Does that help us? And they develop the methods for multiplying mixed numbers together. They analyze the information here. They then create a method of solution. So we're talking about the highest levels of Bloom's. they evaluate it. We try a problem in the abstract and let them try it. Okay. They understand the concept first, the idea of groups and what mixed numbers mean. It's in context because we're using, in this case, we're using pictures. We even talked about a context of a vending machine that sells cookies in terms of like 3/4 cookies and things like that. So it's very there's a concept. It's conceptual. We're looking at groups, and so we're doing pretty much, and we're exploring, refining patterns. So we're pretty much using, again, all the same ideas. I get the students to do the heavy lifting, the heavy thinking, the exploring, the critical thinking, the problem solving, and that's really what this method, this way of teaching is all about.